1 more minute. Okay. All righty. Can we come back together, please? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Who wants to go first? Address the first question. Okay. Who wants to address the first question there? Why do you think Joseph asked his brother? No, we're shepherds. We're shepherds. We're not technocrats. Shepherds. Why do you think that? Who wants to go? There's no right or wrong answer. Just share what you think.
So it is well known that the historians tell that the shepherds they were despised by the Egyptians, right? So we think that it was said here in our group that this was a wise decision made by Joseph because he wanted to protect his brothers. And then it was also raised here that maybe he didn't trust his brothers enough. But we don't know. But actually, but what we do know is that they being far from the city, they will also be protected from the influence of the practice of the Egyptians. So in Goshen, they had a chance to worship God in their own ways. And also they kept their identity. So that was, if anyone wants to, does anyone want to contribute more? Yes, please.
I'll say keeping their identity, worshiping God was their identity.
Correct.
And that's why he wanted to keep them in a place where they could worship God, because that's the only thing that will preserve their identity. And same thing with us. You know, Christ is everything for us. Once we lose Christ, that's the end of the story.
Correct. That's a great perspective.
And this was one of the way how they can become strong. Egyptians' perception was that they are shepherds. They are okay, can do whatever they want. They are not threat, but in fact they become so strong after 100 years. Mm-hmm. They've been a threat for the Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. So that if you can make a conclusion is what the world perceives as a success, as a triumph, is not what God sees. And what God sees could look like very simple, but in fact it's a strong.
Thank you. Okay, for time's sake. Okay, I'll take it. Okay, shoot.
Okay, we said that actually, apart from all the other valid points that have been raised as well, we thought that Joseph was also indirectly telling them to, for once in your life, say the truth. because that is the job that they actually do, apart
Right.
from the other criminalities that they get involved
Right.
in. So he was telling them to say the truth, be yourself.
Good point.
Then in addition, we also mentioned something about the fact that Joseph's prior knowledge of the cultures and the ways of the Egyptians, he could actually use that. I mean, maybe he was thinking of an opportunity for his family, for his brothers, knowing that the people didn't really like shepherds, and they have livestock as well. So it could be that Joseph actually saw that as an opportunity for his brothers, for his family.
Okay, good point. Okay, half a sentence?
Yeah, I was going to add to that, just to say that, when you prepare a CV, your CV is based on your experience. These guys have got a lot of experience as shepherd. And Joseph knew that. Maybe because Joseph has also been there, he knew Pharaoh would be in need of shepherds. Because the after event of that was that they were in charge of those things for Pharaoh. So their CV spoke for them.
Okay, sincere CV, good. Something to think about. Don't answer, just think about it. If you were the Prime Minister of Britain, and I happened to be your brother, okay, let me not finish the question. Sorry, scrap that. The next question, please. Who wants to go? What class? Who's addressing the next question? Quick. What did you guys discuss? The second question there. Any thoughts? No thoughts? Okay. All right, you can shoot. Please give me the mic.
Regarding whether they could have occupied better roles had they committed to developing themselves, yes, they probably could. Was that the plan? No, it wasn't really the plan. The plan for them was to go there, settle, and become a nation. And I think Joseph was really committed to sticking to that plan. Because when he spoke to his brothers, he said, "Look, God sent me here ahead of you to preserve life." So he was really working on God's schedule, and he wanted them to stay on script. I think it's also important to understand that the same way, the dreams that Joseph had were not his dreams, it was God's dreams. God's dreams for Jacob, for his people. God has dreams for us as well. It's important that we stay on God's script. And for that, we would have to sacrifice opportunities. So they sacrificed those opportunities. What do we also have to sacrifice to stay on God's script to protect our faith?
That's a good perspective. Yes, anybody else? You've got 12 minutes.
Okay, so what I want to add to that is, I think in this modern age, especially as parents, we hear a lot about you don't need to tell your children what to do. You need to let your children make their own choices. But we see in this very story why it is important as parents to lay the best foundation that you can in the ordinance of God. If we say we're not allowed to tell our kids what to do, and they choose to, they take to a career that is not in tune with God, we failed as parents. Mm-hmm. If Joseph did not take the lead to lay the foundation for his brothers, having been there with his experience, it might have taken much longer for God's purpose to be fulfilled.
Good point. Okay. Ouch. Okay, I can't say no to the pastor.
As I'm walking over to pastor then, so I think it's important that Joseph learned a lesson when he became a slave, in that he was very successful, became the head of the household whilst he was a slave. So he learned a very important skill of how not to be a threat, but at the same time to develop himself.
Correct.
It's the same thing in the prison. How not to be a threat in the environment that you're in, but also to develop yourself. And he wanted to do the same for the children of Israel.
Like that point.
Have them a shepherd Make them shepherds, but also at the same time give them opportunities for leadership.
Like that point.
There's something that a plaque on your door, that a degree, that a title won't give you, and that is a Christ-like character. The foundation of Christ-like character is humbleness and servitude. Jesus was trying to instill within his people in this culture of being a servant as a shepherd to the nation of Egypt, to the king of Pharaoh. He was instilling within them a character of service, a character of humbleness. Jesus tells us in Matthew 20, Luke 22, he says, Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve. Jesus told his disciples, he who wants to be the greatest must be the servant of all. So Jesus, what he was started with the 12 nations, the 12 tribes of Israel in the land of Egypt, he continued that pattern with his own 12 disciples. And I can tell you for all of us here, sometimes we're mistaken that because we have a title, because we have a position, because we have a particular status or authority, well, I don't need a set of chairs in the church. I don't need to help pick up trash outside in my community. I don't need to take care of the poor. That is completely unbiblical, and I would say contrary to the character of Christ himself. So I think the greatest preparation or the betterment of our role, what can be better than imitating the character of Christ? And I think this is something that's the failure in many of our, and I'm not saying don't get educated. We talked about that. I'm not saying don't go to school, no. All of these things. But at the core of who we are should be the call to serve as Christ served. And shepherds were not just servants. They were also warriors, because they were the only soldiers that Jacob had to go fight against people that would attack them. Mm-hmm. So shepherds weren't feeble. They weren't weak. They weren't just lounging around waiting for sheep to eat all day. No, they were protecting the sheep. They were protecting the lands and their families as well. But at the heart of this, the betterment of who they were was built upon the core foundation, Christ-like character of humbleness and servitude.
Thank you, Pastor. Ouch. Okay. Okay.
I'm going to just dive on the back of Pastor here. I so agree with that. I remember years ago when I was involved in graduate recruitment. And recruiting graduates at the time wasn't the easiest thing to do. And I remember I was very, very successful at doing it. And one of the key questions that another competing recruiter used to ask me, how is it that you were able to find good graduates? And I said, well, you know what? The qualifications are fine. I know they've got the qualifications. The attitude and the behaviors is more important than the qualification. For me, it was important that these graduates were able to stand strong in an organization and be clear about who they were in their particular roles and as upcoming leaders in an organization. Attitude and behaviors are much harder, in actual fact, to find rather than the skill in terms of the educational aspect of a job. And I think it's exactly the same when it comes to Christianity as well. As Pastor was saying, the Christ-like character is really important. This is our true character. And I think when we are really in tune with God and that true character comes across, then whether you have this qualification or not, doesn't matter in actual fact to God. It's how we serve him that makes a difference.
Well answered. I'm sorry, I'll have to go forward. If we have time, I'll get back to you. Okay. I still don't know where to press this thing. Is it working? Okay, it's a bit late. Okay, cool. All right. 7 minutes. Okay, so right here, let's take a look. Let's diving into the life of Jacob. This guy had a very interesting life. From the usurper to a wanderer that gets served in his own coin by Laban, embarks on an uncertain trip back to his brother with sleepless nights in fear for his life and in prayers, dealing with his only daughter, Dinah, getting abused, and his sons turned murderers, and maybe the entire neighborhood blacklisted him and his family, having to flee and losing the love of his life on that same journey, to living with his own sons, plotting to kill their own brother, to his own first son having an affair with one of his wives, and then to cutting his ration just to survive one more day of famine. But now here was Jacob before the monarch of a superpower and blessing him. Interesting. To the question straight up. What does this tell you about God's genuine interest in us, even when our life is not perfect. We've messed things up. About God's commitment to still reroute us to where He wants us to be, if only we stick with Him. Question number 2. Can anybody here relate to the life of Jacob, the topsy-turvy, trying so hard to live right, but still having to deal with the uncertainties of life? Why is it important to understand life as a series of phases and not to get too preoccupied with the current phase that you are in right now that will eventually pass away? Go to your classes. We've got 5 more minutes. Let's talk about this. Okay. Okay. I'm having a hard time getting your attentions. Okay. Okay. Amen. 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 Pastor, I want to appeal for an extra 6 minutes. Ouch. 5 minutes is fine. Okay. So hold on to your answers. There are some other questions I really want us to address. So hold on to your answer for now. We'll just go to the next one quickly. Am I getting this right this time? Okay, so I'll just skip all these details, but these are the details of the summary of the blessings that he pronounced, well, the prophetic, whatever, on the life of each of the sons, okay? Let's go to the questions directly. For time's sake, we'll just go to the questions. I'm struggling. Okay, good. All right. So the second question there. The first question is, do you think these were just a fatherly, affectionate expressions of blessings to his sons, or were these prophetic declarations? If you think they were prophetic, now, not many of them came out from that room smiling. The first three dudes came out with a long face. Until they came to Judah, that was the only point that the guy came out smiling. So if you agree this was actually a prophetic declaration, the question is, if it was prophetic, it means it came from God, right? So is God playing favoritism here? Is this predestination, or is there more to this? Keep that question in mind. For time's sake, the last question here, sorry, the last two questions there, okay. If you read the text, it says, do you remember one experience in your life when a wicked action that was directed at you with intention to harm you turned out for your good? In the aftermath of that action, how did your experiences of suffering and injustice play a role in the formation of your character? The part B to that is, how willing, like Joseph, would you be to forgive, especially when it does not end as nicely as his experience here? Are there by chance any pending grudges that you might want to reconsider letting go after today? I have 2 minutes. So we might not go to our classes in this case. Can I just get some responses? The first question was this. Was it favoritism, predestination, or is there more to this? First question, quickly. We've got 2 minutes, Grace.
You know, that's definitely more complex than a minute and a half. But so first of all, God lives both in the present and the past and the future. We're not called to heal or to fix the things of the past back in the past. We can only fix any things that are happening in the past. We can fix them or address them now. Or if we don't address, forsake, forgive any grudges, any issues that are done to us in the present, it will poison our future. The Lord wants us to trust Him in being willing to forgive those that have done harm to us for the sake of being delivered from an unnecessary, painful future. Whether that be in your marriage, if your wife did something to you this week, if your husband did something to you this week, should today not be the day of forgiveness? So Sunday doesn't roll along and all of a sudden you're angry with your spouse still, or your children, your coworkers, or somebody in church, or somebody in your family. I believe that part of this idea, not so much the predestination aspect of salvation, but ultimately we can lose our own salvation by not allowing God to work within our own hearts to deliver us from the past that we've experienced ourselves, from things that we may be victims of, things that we don't think to ourselves, man, why are we going through these things? I believe the idea, one of the things that we experience is you live in a world, all of us live in a world where we're going to face injustice. We're going to face pain. We're going to face hurt. we're not going to be within a walled city of God and no harm is going to come to us. We're going to be affected by cancer, diabetes. We're going to be affected with all these different things. But ultimately, as we see what God is doing, is the ultimate end is our deliverance from all these different things. When we're going through all these trials, broken relationships, issues with finances and health and whatever may be going on, our eyes must not lose focus upon the ultimate deliverance that God does have promised. But at the end of it, we do see that the restoration that God has planned is healing amongst our relationships with Him, with God first, and with our fellow man.
Thank you, Pastor. I have been asked to wrap up, so I don't get disfellowshipped. I would listen in obedience. I'm hoping that you'll learn one or two things from our conversations today. And going forward, would implore you to please try to come a bit earlier so we can have a lot more time to really dive in, explore the lessons. So when we get out of here, we are leaving with something to challenge us for the rest of the week. Thank you for your time and God bless you.